This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones. Better late than never. Some tech issues this morning. It's a Monday morning. It's raining outside. It's about what you'd expect.
I've been sitting here since 9 a.m. No, I'm just kidding. I've been sitting here since about 5 of 11.
Steve slept here all night in studio. He was like, I'm ready for this. I'm excited for the show this Monday morning.
Made me wait. What is wrong with you?
But hey, I'm back.
Yes, you are back.
No more Jason. He'll be here next week. But
my week is ruined.
I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry for your loss.
So let's start. Again, the stuff you don't want to talk about on shows like this. I don't want to talk about Mel Tucker, but you have to talk about Mel Tucker. And it's not talking about Mel Tucker per se. It is what is wrong with the people at Michigan State. You want to know when the athletic director found out about this sexual harassment case?
When?
December.
And it is what month, Steve?
It's September now. So they investigated it. Okay, so they're bringing an outside investigative unit. Okay. Now, this involves two people. Okay. So you start by interviewing the two people, and then maybe a few others that could possibly corroborate or break the story. It doesn't take that long.
Okay. Takes, what, a week or two?
Okay. That's why Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. Okay, you can use it to make calls. You don't have to just look up on stuff on Google, okay? Or Bing, or Yahoo, or whatever your search engine. Firefox, Safari, right? You can actually use it to make calls, set up face-to-face meetings. It doesn't take that long.
Something cool that we found out in 2020. It's called Zoom.
Zoom, right? Or Teams.
Yeah.
All right. So you find out in December, okay? You get an independent group. The investigation does not take that long. I'm sorry. All right? It takes priority over what's going on, okay, with something like that. They concluded the investigation yesterday? No. They concluded the investigation Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. No. How about July 25th? July 25th is when the investigation ended and the findings were given to those in power at Michigan State.
Month and a half
25th.
ago. Month and a half.
Right. Do you want to know why he is suspended right now?
Because they sent the piece of letter around the world and it got caught up in Nairobi and Thailand and over in Provo, Utah, maybe, and then it finally made its way here. Of course, that's probably what happened, right, Steve?
The reason that he is suspended right now is because the investigation was leaked out. You've known for a month and a half what the results happen to be.
Got lost in the mail, Steve. Got lost in the mail.
The only reason he is suspended today is because people found out about it. Well, we better do something. Now, the initial report was that he was fired. That report was wrong. But he's suspended without pay. They're not meeting until October 5th about this.
A month.
What? October 5th? Here's one for you. Why don't you meet tomorrow?
Or, I feel like this is an emergency. You meet, I think the day we're looking for here is called today. You could have met today, could have met tomorrow, could have met yesterday, could have met last week about it.
But I would be okay with meeting tomorrow. That way everybody has a chance to read the report, which something tells me that a lot of them already have. Right? But you have to give the people in charge a chance to read it, dissect it, understand it. You know, it'll be the usual. We talk to 400 people. It's like, well, you know, and 398 are meaningless. Okay. But it's impressive we interviewed this many people. It's like, I was in Nairobi at the time. Okay, thank you.
After conducting a 7,000 person interview, we were swayed by this one person's comment, Steve.
Okay.
Very, very strong comment, very strong words.
2 people plus 5. You interviewed like 7 people. I'm good. At least it's 7 people who would have a handle on what's going on. Okay. And they're not going to do anything until October 5th. Now, he's suspended with pay, without pay. But what are they doing there? What the heck takes so long? Sit down and talk with her, who's been, by the way, through hell in her life. That is why she's an advocate when it comes to anti-sexual harassment, because she's been through hell. You talk with him. Okay? Then maybe anybody, did she tell a friend? Did she tell, who was it? Or friends? Can we talk to them? Find out, what did she tell you? Whole thing on his end. Okay? Sorry, we need to look at phone records. How many times did you call her? It isn't that complicated. And then you try to figure out what's real, what isn't real, based on whatever corroboration you can get, because it's going to be he said, she said. All right? And then you go from there. But I believe, tell me if I'm wrong in this, didn't he say something, or it's been mentioned that he claims it was consensual?
Right. I am attempting to find the specific language at this exact second in time, but
right. So
he says Tucker told investigators he took part in the behavior, but that it was consensual.
I'm sorry if she says it wasn't.
The two-way street here.
That's enough. And it just, I don't understand what they are doing there. Okay, you find out in December. You probably should have had a resolution by the spring game. It doesn't take that long.
Took them almost, realistically, they found out, you said December. Let's say they found out on Christmas. Took them 7 months.
7 months.
To solve whatever this was, with a grand total of probably, as you said, 7 people they had to interview.
And then they have the report. Okay. Now, in fairness, I would want to present the report to him and and send the report to her and say, hey, look, these are our findings, just so you know, and then take the appropriate action at that point. But they let it sit there. They let it sit. And he coached the first 2 games. He coached training camp. He coached the first 2 games. Just like everything's normal. It's all good. No problem. But then it got leaked out.
And that's when they decided to actually announce some sort of suspension or anything else.
The university's objective has been and remains focused on conducting a fair, thorough, and unbiased investigation, allowing the process to play out. Okay. This involves 2 people. It's not that complicated. Okay? And they're told that that Tucker sent her gifts, asked if she would date him if he wasn't married, and other details I'm not going to get into on a family show. Tucker told investigators he took part in the behavior, but that it was consensual. Haller says he found out in late December, shortly after Tracy filed claims. Michigan State hired a third-party investigator. The investigator finished her report July 25th. I mean, the hearing is October 5th. Like, come on, man.
The statement in the part of this article I'm reading from ESPN, coming from Dan Murphy, is, I think, the one you've harped on a lot, but I think it needs to be said, is Haller said on Sunday he decided not to suspend Tucker in July after the investigator had completed her report because he wanted to allow the full process to come to a conclusion. He said the school decided to increase those interim measures to include a suspension Sunday because of new information coming to light.
Yeah, the new information that came to light is it got out. What new information came out?
You didn't find new information over 7 months?
Okay, but what new information came out? The new information that came out is that
it came
out. That's the new information. There's no new information here. None.
Someone changed the access from private to public. That's the only difference here.
Okay. Guess what? You're allowed to have emergency meetings on something like that instead of a regularly scheduled October 5th meeting. They should have had a meeting. Hey, look, we got this report on July 25th. Whomever's in charge of making the decision, whether it's the university president, the provost, the athletic director, combination of all three together, the associate athletic director that's in charge of football, whatever. Okay, here it is. Guys, we get it July 25th. Let's take 3 days here. Let's absorb what's going on and make a decision. And by July 28th, come up with a resolution here, one way or the other, and release it. I mean, because what he did was wrong, and I could, and this isn't one of those where you sit back and say, well, because he admits, he says it was consensual. Okay, well, that's his defense, which means he admits he did it. He's claiming she was okay with it. Well, obviously, based on her complaint to the athletic department through a formal complaint process, she again has put her name out there, right, after going through hell in her life. Why does she want to put her name out there? She doesn't want to do that, but she feels she was wronged. I'm sorry, okay? At this point, this is not difficult. And imagine having a $95 million 10-year contract, and you're blowing the last $77 million doing something stupid like this. But what is wrong with their process? I'm sorry, it should not take 7 months to investigate this. He tells investigators, yeah, it was consensual. Oh, really? Okay, so now we're not up to the point of, I didn't do that. Yes, he did. I didn't do that. Yes, he did. We're not doing that. I did. It was consensual. No, it wasn't. You can tell by my complaint, I didn't think it was. I kind of had enough. Did you tell other people? That's always a question, and it's difficult to tell other people. It's probably one of the things when she talks to people about dealing with sexual harassment, about the ability to somehow summon up the guts to tell somebody else, because it has to be hard to be told, to tell somebody else. But it's their process. I sit back and I look at their process. The new information that came out is pretty simple. It got out. We have to do something. If it didn't get out, they're going to wait till October 5th and just keep coaching games? That's what I would ask. If it didn't get out, were you going to allow him to keep coaching games until October 5th?
Let's be honest. The answer is probably yes. Most likely is yes. Because clearly if they had this solved July 25th and just never talked about it, then yeah. They were probably going to say, keep coaching until this date, and then we'll figure it out from there. And at that point, would they have done anything else is the other question. But he says, after that, what would they have done?
He says it's an ongoing investigation, so we can't say anything about it. Excuse me. You started out by saying they had the full report on July 25th. It's like, what the heck?
We're not going to have answers on any of these things is the issue.
I know. But again, it's an ongoing investigation. No. Hey, sport. The investigation was concluded July 25th, not ongoing. Okay? The only thing that changed is we found out. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Let's switch gears. Let's talk sports.
Yes. Where would you like to go? Would you like to go professional or collegiate?
The key is on Saturday, I felt Penn State got better. Now, it's hard to tell. That's why I asked James the question in the postgame show. I said, look, game 1 to game 2, I said, the standard is the standard. I said, as this game played out, and you played a lot of people, did you meet the standard? And he says, we got better. Right? That's what you're looking to do. Right? It doesn't matter about the opponent. It's harder to tell sometimes based on the opponent. Like if it had been reversed and you played Delaware first, West Virginia second, right? You might get a better read and feel for it. In terms of like the ability just to watch from the stands or watch in the press box. But with a coach's eye, that's why I asked him. It's his coach's eye I was relying on there to answer the question. Drew Allard played well. Katron played well. Keandre Lambert Smith across the board. It's really hard to find any fault with what went on. They had the one big play. Penn State was was walled off and out of position on that play, and he went 66 yards. And then look, hey, give Delaware credit. Yarns made the play. They blocked it. Give them credit. But other than that, you're expected to smother that opponent. You did the expected, and you played almost 80 guys in the game, 75 guys, 80 guys.
Pretty much everybody in the game. You probably gave up a grand total of a yard a guy, give or take, outside of the 66-yard run. Yeah. They had, 74, I think, outside of that Delaware. Yeah. So you basically, every guy who played in the game gave up a yard total.
Right.
Which I think is a pretty good number to end at.
Sure. And you got a lot of people in the game, and they got invaluable playing experience. It doesn't it's only. Don't do the it's only. Okay. Tony Rojas is a good example. So let's take Tony. Terrific prospect. Not a good prospect. He's a terrific prospect. Sees things well. Understands how to play football, understands how to play linebacker, but he's only going to get better by just physically playing. Tony got lost on a couple of plays in the West Virginia game because it's his first ever collegiate game. So he's maybe a little out of position here, a little out of position there. He was so much better on Saturday. That's just an example of what playing time can mean to a true freshman. King Mack was better on Saturday than he was in the opener. It doesn't matter about the opponent. It's, hey, now that they have a tape under their belt, they're able to look at it and say, okay, see what you did here? Okay, that's really good. Now see what you did here? That needs to be corrected. Right? And then you put in an application during practice, then you go out and it happens in the game and you react much better. That's just by playing the game. And that was really, really a great plus for Penn State in the game as to how things went. Some guys got their first action, like Anthony Donko, Javen Williams, Andrew Rappelet, guys like that all got, let's see, so you played 3 quarterbacks. You played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. That's 8. Okay, you played 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's pretty much everybody.
Wide receivers.
As many guys they did in the game got in.
17. You played 6 tight ends. So now we're up to 23. They played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 offensive linemen. So we're up to 35?
35 guys on the offense alone.
Okay. You played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defensive ends.
42.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defensive tackles.
49.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 58.
58.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 65 with the corners. Now we get the safeties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
73.
73.
Plus 2 kickers.
No, 3 kickers.
3 kickers.
3 kickers because Gabe kicked off.
Wosu, Falcons,
Sahadic. Then, of course, Riley Thompson punted. Okay, in the game.
So 77 is the current number. And we're probably forgetting.
No, I think Tyler did all the snapping. Yeah, Tyler did all the snapping in the game. They didn't go to the backup snapper.
So 78.
78 guys.
78 players played in this game.
Because they didn't change the punt returner.
Caden Saunders.
Caden Saunders the entire time. They didn't change the kick. Well, I mean, the kick return guys, they only had to return 2. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you know what I was most excited about, or what made me most excited watching this game, the biggest play for me, was DeLuca getting the pick 6. Because he had one early in the game. He nearly picked off, and he probably should have, and had daylight ahead of him.
Right.
And dropped it, and you could see he was mad about it, and then got his later. He got the pick 6. It was, of course, it was already up 49-7 when it happened.
Sure.
But he still got one, and that helps for confidence.
Well, let's take the journey for a guy. He is out of West Pittston. His team makes the state championship game. He tears his ACL in the championship game. Keeps playing. And is the MVP of the game. He ends up with a chance to walk on here at Penn State. Hard work, perseverance, more hard work, perseverance, makes himself better, gets himself into the lineup, plays. Goes through last year after playing, and at the Rose Bowl is awarded a scholarship. Now he works, becomes a captain. Now he works, and is awarded the number 0. Imagine, as a lifelong Penn State fan, to have picked off a pass, to do all that, all those great pluses, and to do that and to run that back in Beaver Stadium and make that play, phenomenal. But there are certain guys that have the ability to pick up a half step here and there because they know what they're seeing. And that's the ability to, I always talk about there are great athletes playing a particular sport. And there are certain people that were made for that sport. Now, Dominic DeLuca is a really good athlete, but he was made to play football. He knows how to play football. Oh, sure, there are things he can pick up from Manny and so forth that are going to make him a better football player. Yeah, of course. Is he an NFL guy? I mean, look, let's just file that for later down the road in life, right? But he's a really good college player. He's a really good college player. And winning teams are made up of stars, next-level guys. Oh, and by the way, a whole bunch of really good college players. He's a really good college player. And that's, and a lot of respect for him. And universally respected by his teammates. I mean, you don't get to be a captain without that. That's why I was glad to see Nick Dawkins get in the game. Center, played some guard. Dawkins was very close to being voted a captain. He actually was right in the mix because he's that respected by the other players on the team. So that was great. I mean, to get all those people in, for Jerry Cross got his first meaningful time. Rappelet got his first meaningful time. I mean, that's great. All those young offensive linemen, even Jim Diono got out. I think he was in for 11 plays in the game. Really good. That's great.
About 10 different players caught passes, I believe.
Yeah.
So you're hitting good numbers there.
So now you got Illinois this week. Okay, Illinois is 1-1. They have been saddled with 2 mediocre first halves. They have played better in the second half of each game. Okay, they're 1-1. Against Toledo at home, they were able to overcome it. Caleb Griffin kicked the game-winning field goal. They win 30-28. They couldn't overcome it against Kansas. Kansas is playing at home. Daniels is a different style of quarterback, obviously, than Drew Aller happens to be. But they've given up a lot of yards in the first 2 games, and they've given up yards rushing in the first 2 games. And keep in mind, it's been a little bit different for them in the secondary, even though I like Miles Scott a lot and Xavier Scott, I like both of them very much. But remember, Weatherspoon was in that secondary last year, and he was one of the top 10 picks in the draft. Terrific player that really opened up a lot of things. Plus, it's a new defensive coordinator. I don't know how badly Randolph is hurt. Let's give ESPN all the credit in the world. When Randolph was on the field hurt, they cut to a graphic and talked about something that I absolutely did not care about, and we never found out what was wrong with Randolph. I don't.
You have questions. You have questions, what you're saying.
I have a lot of questions.
And
then there was the one where the player was on the field, and I felt awful for the sideline reporter, Katie George. And it was one of those where, they had to take the player off the field. Katie, do you see any movement down there? She's like, what? She's like, she's not standing there. What are you doing that to her for? Like, again, what? Oh, boy.
Not great so far.
No, it's not. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem. The NFL...
It's back. It's back, baby.
Your team won.
My New Orleans Saints did win 16-15. It was an interesting affair against the Titans, I think is the best way to put it. The one thing that made me smile was seeing a blocked punt with Steve Gleason in the Superdome.
And Tim Shaw was the Titans.
Tim Shaw,
Penn
yes.
State's Tim Shaw was the Titans.
So it was nice to see that. You saw a little bit out of this team in places. Olave had a good game, 8 catches, 122 yards. You felt good about him. Yeah. Rashid Shaheed, the guy who I drafted in my fantasy league, and I told you he's going to be a problem. Yeah. He had the touchdown for the Saints. And this is the big change the Saints made after having Will Lutz as kicker. I know I'm harping on the Saints here. Will Lutz was our kicker. He, for years, was great. And this offseason, it was major when it was like, oh, Lutz got traded. And now we have this undrafted guy, Blake Grupe, as our kicker. And then we also got rid of Blake Gillikin, former Penn State player, and just great punter. Got rid of him, too, for the 30-year-old Lou Hedley. It's like, okay, going undrafted, both positions is a bold move.
Speaking of 30-year-old, Illinois' punter's 30.
Yeah.
He is.
It's fun seeing it. I mean, Lou Hedley had himself a good punting game, but the big one was Grupe came in, went 3 for 3 on his kicks, long of 52, and Will Lutz missed a kick and a PAT. Hedley had some good punts, and the Saints feel good all of a sudden. And that made me smile.
The Steelers don't. They don't feel good at all.
A lot of teams don't feel good at all right now.
No, the worst performance was by the Giants and the Bengals, I would think, and the Steelers are pretty close.
Yeah, Giants got shellacked 40-0
the Giants
last night.
It was credit. Let's give credit. Dallas did a great job, especially defensively last night. I thought Dak Prescott had the best comment in the postgame where he was named one of the 3 players of the game. He says, I don't know why I got this ball. he said, because defense and special teams did the whole thing today. But the Steelers were completely outmanned yesterday. TJ Watt, no, he was terrific.
Yeah. Just quickly on the Giants. This was put out by The Athletic and OptaStats. No team has ever lost 40-0 or worse, lost the sack battle 7-0 or worse, lost the turnover battle 3-0 or worse, had a blocked field goal returned for a touchdown, and threw a pick 6 in the same season. The Giants did it in 1 game.
Well, see, it's great to be a standard bearer. But that said, the Eagles were okay. I saw somebody say, and Jalen Hurts was the player of the game offensively. I said, how about Josh Elliott? Jalen Hurts was not very good yesterday. I don't care if he hit 67% or not. He kept trying to hit the big play left and right, and he had guys roaming free over the middle that he could have had, right? His decision-making was that of being over-anxious. And Nick Sirianni, excuse me here, okay? You may have 4th down and 2. Punt the ball, okay?
Yeah.
You want to know why? Because at minimum, they're going to need 80 yards if it goes in the end zone.
Yeah.
At minimum, okay? At maximum, they may have 90 to 92 yards with no timeouts. Instead, you gave them 52 yards because I'm going to go for it. Oh, and by the way, Gonzalez not only makes a really good play, but it's not a well-thrown ball. I mean, you got to read the room, Nick. Your quarterback's not having a good day. Okay, he's having, by his standards, okay, and Jalen Hurts has set a high standard, is not having a good day, right? I run my punter out there and say, hey, look, dump the thing inside. If it goes in the end zone, I don't care. Okay, it's going to run 7 seconds off the clock. They have no timeouts, and they're going to have 80 yards to go because they need a touchdown. Because after the holding penalty on the 2-point conversion, it changed the dynamics.
Yeah, but you know who had a worse start of the season, player-wise? Kadarius Toney.
Oh,
This was. I know I wasn't here on Friday. It was you and Jason, but on Thursday Night Football, the Lions won. Lions, a very fun team to watch. We'll discuss them all season long because they look fun.
I like them.
But Kadarius Toney, they always joke about having butterfingers. I think there's got to be something worse than having butterfingers. Oil and soap hands, maybe. He had 4 drops.
There was a reason.
4 right to his hands.
There's a reason why the Giants
got rid of him
last year. Right? When they drafted him, I know that they wanted Devontae Smith. And look, the Eagles outplayed him on it in the draft. They swapped places with, of all teams, the Dallas Cowboys. Okay? And this is why Gettleman had to go. They swapped places. Okay? And the Giants, okay, should have taken Micah Parsons that second. The heck, I know we need a receiver. We'll find one later, but we've got to take this talent, okay? And instead, I think they swapped places with the Bears, right?
They swapped back with the Bears. Bears went up.
Bears went up. Cowboys then draft Parsons. And we're still going to take a wideout, Kadarius Toney. I'm like, the second they drafted him, I looked around and said, what are you taking him for?
He was up. He was not meant to go that high, and you could.
He's a 3rd-round pick. You could have had him in the 3rd round.
At best in that draft, he was a 2nd rounder. If you're feeling lucky,
maybe.
But
I looked at it, like, what are you doing? And that's why you know somebody has to go when they do something that bizarre. Where the average person sits there and said, I'm confused here. What are we doing?
And Mahomes was asked after the game about him, and he was like, I've got confidence. He'll figure it out. Like, he has to say that. He can't say, like, oh, no, he's terrible. He's awful.
That's a good teammate.
Yeah.
Okay, good teammates. Oh, why would he say something like that? Hey, look, you know what? We get out here. I mean, because all the private stuff you say to me about Jerry Valeri, up public, you'd back him up. The private stuff where it's like, I mean, really? I mean, do you come to work with verbal knives? No, I'm just kidding. He doesn't. He praises Jerry left and right. But we're obligated to get Jerry's name in the podcast at some point because Jerry loves it.
Yes, and we'll discuss more NFL stuff tomorrow because there's a lot that happened,
including Aaron Rodgers.
Whatever happens. We also are going to discuss my Super Bowl pick, which I made officially this week, and it happened before this game, and I'm quite happy with it. I went 2 a time, baby, and that ended up working quite well for me. Week 1.
So the Giants are out.
Sadly, the Giants are Steelers, Giants.
Out. They're out.
The Bengals losing is big.
Browns defense is a major league defense.
That they are, Steve. That they are, and we'll discuss.
And they can shorten games with their running game.
They can. Nick Chubb's pretty good. He's pretty good at what he does. But we're going to discuss that tomorrow here on Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains media production. Check back daily for all the latest sports news and analysis with the voice of Penn State football and men's